Phoenix, Vancouver. His blood type was airport coffee and mini pretzels, and he racked up miles like George Clooney in that movie where he was paid to fire people and ended up 50 and single with nothing but an empty backpack and nobody to talk to but Sam Elliott's mustache. There were months when Remy spent more time in hotel beds than his own. And the worst part, most hotel bars closed at 11. He consulted with wealthy CEOs and CFOs, clients a generation or two older than him, businessmen and women who gawked at this 28-year-old and wondered whether they'd just lit tens of thousands of dollars on fire. Yet, once the job was complete, they knew Remy was worth it. He could size up companies, situations, and employees like a scout evaluating athletes. 90 seconds with an executive and Remy would know that he was a pathological narcissist who drove company morale off a cliff. Or a half hour with the company's books where Remy could add 3% right to their bottom line by cutting off employees who charged champagne room visits to their corporate Amex. And of course, there were the layoffs. Bloodletting, Pulaski called it. A company had to lance a wound to let the bacteria out. Pulaski was not what Remy would call a people person. Remy had spent years traveling the globe making money for men like Pulaski, driving himself towards exhaustion and madness. So, after leaving the Pulaski offices on Madison Avenue and 53rd Street at 9, Remy decided he deserved a drink. Maybe several. His tolerance wasn't what it used to be, so he had to be careful not to overdo it. Back in college, he could down a case of PBR and still wake up the next day with the dexterity to tie his shoelaces. Sleeping off a hangover until noon was no longer an option. Hence, the choice of the barely alcoholic Miller Lite. Remy wasn't really in the mood to have to wait for a bar stool, and on Friday nights, most bars around Madison Avenue were packed with oily finance bros. He simply wanted a stool to sit on and a cold pint and maybe a ball game to watch in peace. Thankfully, he had just the place in mind. Remy hailed a cab and told the driver to take him to 85th and York. He tipped the cabbie well and entered Bailey's, a no-nonsense Irish pub with a glossy dark wood bar top, a well-worn dartboard, and a clientele that thankfully preferred to mind their own business. His kind of place. Remy pulled out a stool and ordered a Miller Lite. The bartender, a ruddy-faced gent named Ian, with deep acne scars and wearing an Arsenal soccer jersey, poured the draft and sat it on the bar without once taking his eye off the television. The Yankees were losing. Ian made a sucking noise through his teeth as the Twins pitcher struck out the side to end the fourth. Then he poured himself a Jameson and slammed it. "Haven't seen you in a spell," the bartender said. "Thought you might be cheating on us with another bar." "Never. You're the only place in the city where the drafts are cold enough." "Keep the beer colder than your heart," Ian said. "That's the key to a successful pub." Remy took a healthy gulp of his beer, put his elbows on the bar, and relaxed. He'd been introduced to Bailey's a few years ago while dating a pretty redhead named Nicole. It was the perfect spot to make out in a cozy, dimly lit booth without being interrupted. After they broke up, she got a hedge fund manager and a house in the suburbs, and Remy got the bar. Remy finished his beer, and Ian brought him a new pint without asking. A dingy mirror ran along the back wall behind the liquor bottles. Remy checked himself out. He was still young, having turned 28 in February, but felt like he'd been aging faster than an open milk carton. A few months back, Remy found his first gray hair. Since then, they'd invited friends. His light brown hair hid the grays for the most part, but the 10 pounds he'd gained since college was evident every time he loosened the belt buckle on his size 34s or found himself breathing a little too hard after a 5K. He was on the slender side, still made time to go to the gym 4 times a week, and forced himself to get in 50 push-ups and sit-ups on days when he couldn't make time. Most importantly, he occasionally mustered up the willpower to pass on nachos. After graduating summa cum laude from Yale with a degree in political science, Pulaski had offered Remy $85,000 a year, which would help pay off his rather massive student loan debt. Pulaski wasn't McKinsey, but it was a stepping stone. 6 years in, and he was making $110,000. He could pay his rent, barely, pay his bills, barely, and was chipping away at his loans.